Definitely don't hook that leg up, otherwise something's going to go boom. Welcome to the latest community questions answered video. This question is from the Wattcycle 12K inverter video I just released. So per the specs, one Wattcycle has a bypass rating of 50 amps per leg, and EG4 has 100 amps total, 50 amps per leg. So both is per leg and should be the same, no? Also, the version 2 model, if ordered now, apparently is 24,000 watt PV input versus the 18,000 watt EG4. And GridTie will be updated as well on how this works. If all of the above is true per Wattcycle, then the only loudness of the fans and missing Wi-Fi are the drawbacks. All the rest is on par or better. No, you're not understanding this correctly. So in the video that this question is from, I'm comparing this Wattcycle 12,000 watt inverter to my EG4 12,000 XP, which is also a 12,000 watt inverter. And the bypass rating, what I'd call pass-through rating, that the person asking the question about, is vastly different. The EG4 12,000 XP is a full 100 amp pass-through, but if we look here at the part of the video for when I'm looking at the spec sheet on the Wattcycle 12,000 watt inverter, you can see it has a rated input as well as a rated output. Technically, the max AC input rated phase current is 60 amps AC, whereas the max output current is 50 amps. But if you take a look at this, the key difference here is the wire size. See how this is only rated for a maximum of 6 gauge, and same thing on the AC output. So that can safely carry 50 amps worth of current, whereas the EG4 12,000 XP can actually support much larger size wire because it is capable of handling the 100 amp. So this is incorrect. Wattcycle has a bypass rating of 50 amps total, not per leg. EG4 is 100 amps total, as you safely said. 12,000 XP has twice as much pass-through power. And yes, the EG4 12,000 XP has a higher PV input versus the Wattcycle. And I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about here with the GridTie system. Maybe you're talking about the hybrid inverter features with these CT clamps that come with the Wattcycle unit. And hopefully they enable some grid interactive features with that, because if they do, that would really add some value to their inverter. But for right now, it only functions in an off-grid setting. This is my 240 volt plug-in solar video. Can the Hoymiles 2000 watt microinverter take solar panel with VOC 60 to 65 volts? I've been looking forever for one because I have a few solar panels like that. I keep getting questions about the VOC on this microinverter, and in the description of this video, I have a link to this video right here, which is the full deep dive and review of the Hoymiles microinverter itself. So all the nitty-gritties and specs and different things are addressed here. We can see here on the spec sheet of the Hoymiles microinverter that the MPPT voltage range is 16 to 60 volts DC with an absolute max VOC rating of 65 volts. So you definitely do not want to go over the 65 volt mark. An ideal is to stay 60 or less, because that is the functional range of the MPPT controllers in the unit. So the 60 to 65 volts VOC technically could work, but boy, you're really pushing the envelope on that. So I would highly recommend steering clear of that, unless it always tends to be closer to the 60 volt range instead of 65 volt. But even then, you're kind of playing with fire. Overvolting an MPPT will destroy it. Overamping it, there's no problem with that. Another question from the 240 volt plug-in solar video. To my understanding, these microinverters just use 2 hot and a ground, no neutral. You left the neutral on the outlet side. So here's my 30 amp twist lock plug that I use for this plug-in solar array. And you can see it is a 240 volt plug. One of these prongs, I believe it's this one, is ground. Then we've got the neutral on the opposite side, and then we have 2 hot legs, right? Because 2 hot legs, 180 degrees out of phase, 240 volt power. And it is true, this microinverter here only uses 2 hot wires. I'm going to be making a full in-depth video about the specific wiring coming up here, so be excited for that. It's already on the schedule. But you can see there's a red wire coming from the trunk cable and a black wire. So that's my 2 hots, because I've got 240 volts coming from that microinverter. And it's a 100% only 240 volt output, right? There's no way to get just 120 volts from that unit, because it does not have a neutral. It does have an earth ground that you can see right here behind my finger, but no neutral. And so going back to this plug, yes, I just wired up the earth ground to the earth ground prong, the right one, and then your 240 volt hot legs, and then the neutral is just blank. It's just open. And that's totally and completely fine, because your 120 volt loads are going to use the neutral in your home's wiring system. There does not need to be any kind of neutral going back to this Hoymiles system. This next question is from my $664 server rack battery. Thanks for all the fantastic content and reviews. I became curious about connecting a golf cart battery in parallel with a server rack battery. If the server rack battery is communicating and you add a golf cart battery with its own BMS, is there a potential for problems? Same chemistry and volts. Boy, did you ask the right question to the right guy. So, any of you who have been part of the channel know that this is my tower of power. All of these batteries, from these on the shelves to these big wall mount batteries over here to these server rack batteries to these golf cart batteries, they are all connected in parallel in one giant system. These batteries are obviously in a series parallel configuration because they're 12 volts and you have to hook them in series to get 48. But so on a regular basis, I actually have my 12,000 XP communicating to the EG4 wall mount battery down here. And then I have all these other batteries just plugged in on, voltage only. So as far as the EG4 12,000 XP is concerned, when it's communicating to this battery, it only sees this one EG4 wall mount battery. It has no idea that all these other batteries are connected to it. And no, that does not mess up the communication at all. The only thing that I've had issues with is sometimes the state of charge guesstimator on the wall mount battery will count down faster than all the rest of these batteries combined, because it kind of guesses based on how much power it sees going out, how much power remains, and the BMS is just guessing based on the capacity that it's aware of, which is just the wall mount battery once again. So one time I had the EG4 12,000 XP program to turn off at a 20% state of charge. So it would just turn off once this wall mount battery recorded a 20% remaining state of charge. And that was a problem because the state of charge counter counted down to 20% way before the entire array was down to 20% and the 12,000 XP shut off. So the way I got around that is I've changed the 12,000 XP to shut off at 0%. So what will happen is the wall mount battery will count all the way down to like 1%, and then it will just sit there at 1% forever and ever because it's just waiting for the battery to die. But in reality, the whole pack is still at, 90% state of charge or something. And so that's how I've kind of gotten around that. Or you can simply change your settings to lead acid and forget about the internal communication. In fact, that's what I do when I charge these batteries all the way up to 100, because that is one other potential issue, is the wall mount battery will cut off the charging before everything has reached 100% state of charge, because the 12,000 XP won't go up to a high enough voltage. The wall mount battery will cut it off through the communication early. So anyway, you're welcome to have closed loop communication to a battery, or just go with good old lead acid mode, no communication, and run it off voltage. This is from my how to install a $360 mini split video. Do you have any idea how good this unit is for winter, or recommendation for a good unit for hard winter? Thanks. Well, as you know, this video hasn't been up for longer than, a month or two. So I have not had this exact mini split for a winter time period yet. So the truth on this exact mini split has yet to be discovered. It's rated down to, I believe, 19 degrees Fahrenheit before it starts to decrease its heat output. So as long as you don't have, major cold below 19 degrees, this should see you through. It will still produce heat below 19 degrees. That's a common misconception people have with heat pumps. Their minimum rating is just the minimum that they can produce 100% of their heat output. So this will still run and produce heat at, say, 5 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's going to be a derated heat output compared to its full rating, if that makes sense. Now, with that said, I have a number of videos about mini splits that I've installed. The biggest system is this right here. This is a 9-zone whole home mini split heat pump system I installed just last year. I'll leave a link for this video down in the description. And I actually do a test during the winter months. You can see the snow on the ground here. The morning that I filmed this, I believe the temperature was like 16 degrees Fahrenheit or something. And these particular units, these are from Pioneer, they're good for like negative 20-something degrees Fahrenheit with 100% output. So they are just really good in cold weather. You pay a little bit more for them, but their heat output is insane. And you don't have to get the big one. You can get a 12,000 BTU unit. Obviously, the cost is substantially more than $300, $400 bucks. But if we scroll down here, you can see that it's rated for negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, you can find, these super duper cold weather units out on the market pretty easily. So if you need one, check them out. I'm a huge fan of Pioneer. They're not sponsoring the video or any videos at all, but they have always treated me very well, great customer support, and all of the units I've installed continue to work flawlessly till this day, and some of them I've had for multiples and multiples of years. So Pioneer, I can speak to the longevity and reliability of. Hoymiles still has the test of time ahead of it. So far, for the last few months, it's been doing just great, but it's only a few months old at this point. Don't forget that in all of my video descriptions, I've got these helpful links for you. This first one's where you can submit a guaranteed to be answered question by me. This one here, you can schedule a one-on-one video consultation with me. That's been extremely popular with a lot of people lately. Everyone enjoys it because I get to give, specific targeted insight and ideas and thoughts to, your own individual system, because no DIY system is equal, right? And then everyone's favorite feature these days, my custom search engine app here. Let's say you want to learn about my mini split adventures. Just come in here and type mini split, and anytime that I've mentioned that in a video title, a video description, or most importantly, spoken it during a video and the transcription picks it up, you can find all of the mini split content really, really easily right here. Let's say you want to jump to this part at 1441, click it, and the video immediately starts playing at 1441 at that exact spot. Or you can just click the thumbnail and it will go and start from the very beginning as well. So take advantage of all those resources. Feedback continues to be positive on these question and answer videos, so stay tuned for next week. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hype on your way out, and we'll catch y'all next time.